Okay, in this video, we're going to learn how to install the OTbase custom data connector for Power BI. First thing you're going to do is log into the Langner customer portal. Once we're logged into here, we're going to find the Power BI custom data connector. Here we have the most recent version. So we're going to go ahead and download that. We'll click download on the right. That will bring up the download window. Great. Once you've downloaded the file, it's very simple from there. Just go ahead and extract it all into whatever folder you'd like. You'll see you're going to get this .mes file. That's the file that we use to initiate the custom connector within Power BI. What you're going to see here is I've created a custom folder in my documents folder. The one you create in here must be formatted exactly as you see here, with Power BI and desktop all being capitalized, including the I in BI. Once you have that, you need to create another folder within Power BI desktop that says custom connectors capitalized again. All right, so now we have the custom data connector extracted. We're going to go ahead and just do a quick copy on that. Then we're going to go to the documents folder where we created that custom connector folder. There won't be anything in yours, and that's okay. We'll go ahead and paste the one we just downloaded, and now we have it. Okay, so now we have Power BI open. The next step is to go up here and click on Get Data. Once we do that, you'll click on Other. Down here, you'll see OTbase Custom with the logo. One important note before we launch that, by default, the settings of Power BI may prevent you from seeing the connectors that did not come directly from the store. That is a setting that Microsoft themselves recommends changing if you want to use data connectors that did not come from the store. And essentially you will come over here to, it's going to be under security right here, and it will say not recommended, allow any extension to load without validation or warning. So we've already got that selected on mine. That is required if you want to use any connector that's not publicly available in the Microsoft Power BI application repository. So we've got our custom data connector. We're going to go ahead and click it, and then we're going to click Connect. From here, we input our protocols and all of the parameters of our API connection. Okay, so for me, that would be this, and then we're going to select the data types that we would like to pull in. For this one, we're going to just start quite simply here. We'll just go ahead and do them all. All right, we're going to select all of the data types. This will ping our devices endpoint, our hardware endpoint, our software, and our vulnerabilities. Now, once you have the vulnerabilities selected, this extra optional field, if you want to filter that to only show you a certain type of vulnerability. In this case, we'll select just critical. We don't want to pull the entire data load, so we're not going to do that. We'll also go ahead and grab a smaller location so that we can see the data load and how to get it in here and check out the data modeling and the relationships and all of that. Go ahead and hit OK. Now, the next screen that this is going to bring us up to, because I've already authenticated, but had you not authenticated recently, it would pop up an additional dialog box asking for your username and password. That is your username and password to the OTbase REST API. Okay, so now you see all of the data has been preloaded. We haven't loaded everything, but we've loaded a preview of it. So you'll see that there are much more items here than what we originally selected, and that's okay. That's because even though we only selected devices, hardware, software, and vulnerabilities, within the devices endpoint there is a compliance object, a connections object, as well as a monitors and tags. And it was determined that the best course of action to handle these was to break them out into their own tables once we bring the raw data in from OTbase. We basically separate those out into their own tables, which will enable you to do more with it than if it was all nested into the same table, because each of these objects has their own fairly nested JSON structure So it was best just to pull them out, and then you can do all sorts of nifty manipulating of them as you see fit. So we'll go ahead and select them all for the purposes of this demo. All right, we've done that. We're going to hit load. Now we'll go ahead and load that up. It's going to take a couple of minutes. So I'll probably cut the video here, and we'll come back once the data is loaded. All right, and we're back in. All of our data has been loaded. And as you can see over here on the right, we have our visualizations pane and our data pane. These are where we do all of the data massaging and turning into various charts and reports, as we like to do, building our visuals with that data within Power BI. Before we dive into each one of these, we're going to do a more in-depth video on a couple of different pieces here, like showing how to build a vulnerability dashboard, how to do maybe a devices dashboard. So I'm not going to break these out too much, but basically when you expand any of these, you see all of the columns within that table. Any user of Power BI is going to already be familiar with this. You can also go over here to your table view on the left, and that's going to show you any the same view, just the actual table view of whichever one you have selected on the data pane on the right. So here we see our compliance, we see connections, we see devices, we see hardware, and within all of these, of course, we have all of our OT-based data, all of our fields that we brought in from our demo site, and of course this would be your data in your Power BI using your API call. But just to give you an idea of what it all looks like once it's in here. Now this is just a table for reference, really. You can do some basic stuff in this table view, like renaming the columns and things like that, but we're not going to do that here today. That's a little more Microsoft oriented than what we're trying to do here. So what we will do is take a look at the model view. Let's look at the model view. So if we click on this, one of the great things about doing it the way we did, where we break out all of these tables into, or all of these JSON objects rather, into their own table, is it enables Microsoft Power BI to use a custom, a primary key from each table to link all of these together intuitively. So as you can see, we have our devices endpoint sort of at the center of the universe, with our device ID acting as the primary key. And although if you were to ping some of these endpoints directly, you may not see device ID, we did build the data connectors such that it inserts a device ID key into each one of these tables, specifically for the purpose of Power BI and ensuring it all maps correctly in the data model. So we have our data model here. Everything's connected. It's all linked back to the devices table as sort of the primary heart of the operation. A couple of changes you'll need to make, well, really one change only, is you're going to need to change the direction of these tables, because right now we're only pointing in one direction. That's the default, and unfortunately there's no way to bake that into the connector code as of today. It must be done in here. It was kind of the same actually with the relationships in general. We were able to work around that by inserting the primary keys into each table and get Power BI to much more intuitively link these tables the way they should be linked. But as far as the directionality of those relationships, you will need to change this by clicking on it, and you'll see that it says cross-filter direction. You're going to go both. Apply changes. Now, this will ensure that when we build the dashboards that we'll show in subsequent videos, all of the relationships are correctly set up and enable you to filter data. You can see in Power BI in other environments, and you'll see in this one, we'll get to some pretty interesting dashboards where, you know, selecting a piece of a pie chart, you want that then to slice down your table with all of your device IDs appropriately and only show those that are associated with the data point that you're trying to look and drill down on at that point. So making sure that all of these relationships are bidirectional is going to ensure that the table that the charts you're building, the visualizations that you're putting together, are going to correctly manipulate the data and cross-slice everything in the right manner. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for bringing in the data. It's a pretty simple process. As you can see in that first screen, gives us the ability to customize what we want to bring in. We can drill it down by location. We can only bring in devices if we want, or software or monitors or whatever. And of course, vulnerabilities, we can filter that down by priority, which is great for just reducing data load, especially if you're building like a CISO dashboard or something like that. You may not want to bring in a few million rows of data that you don't need. You may only want to see your critical, or maybe even your your next to critical alerts, and leave it at that. But basically, the front end GUI will allow you to do all of that filtering and bring in only the data that's relevant to you. And then again, we have that second screen where you actually select within that data the actual tables. So maybe you want to bring in devices, but for this dashboard you're building, you don't need compliance, or you don't really care about the tags, or you don't even have any tags. I don't think that would show up in that case, but if it does, you don't have to select it. It won't show up here. And the great thing about that is it's not that it just doesn't show up, but whenever you do not select something on that screen, you're not going to continue to load it. You've loaded a preview, but if you don't select it and click the load data, then it's not going to load the rest of it, which can help on load times as well. If you just want something quick, you want to grab data and you don't want to spend an hour downloading it, you can chop that data down to as small of a chunk as you want and then bring it down. All right. Thank you for watching. This has been a video on how to download, install, and load data using the OTbase custom connector for Power BI.